These were named after Carl Baedeker's tourist guide, which listed historic cities and buildings which Hitler ordered to be obliterated as a reprisal for the RAF's bombing of the historic city of Lübeck. We will shortly be making our way around the roundabout, the site of St. Stephen's Gate, one of the 12 entry points into the city. The Norwich city gates were pulled down between 1791 and 1808 as they had become a traffic hazard for horses and carts. As we travel round the roundabout, look out for the section of wall to the left of the fitness superstore. On this section of the wall is a mural of St. Stephen's Gate by the artist John Murray Smith. Coming up to the right is the longest visible remaining stretch of the city walls. From around 1150, a ditch protected the town. In 1253, a new banking ditch was constructed, and a square mile was imposed. Over the next century, 3 feet thick walls were built made of flint and were constructed on top of the bank, reaching a height of over 20 feet. The road we are now travelling on was once the ditch surrounding the walls, which was 25 feet deep and 60 feet wide. Altogether, the walls were around 240 miles long and had 12 gates. The site behind the city walls was once occupied by Cayley's, the chocolate factory. Cayley supplied marching chocolate bars for the soldiers in the First World War. The Norwich parish of St. Saviour's is where Bishop Matthew Parker was born. He was appointed by Henry VIII as chaplain to Anne Boleyn. Before her execution, she placed her 3-year-old daughter Elizabeth in his charge. After ascending the throne and becoming Elizabeth I, she appointed Parker Archbishop of Canterbury. It is said he was a remarkably inquisitive man, which earned him the nickname of Nosy Parker, a phrase still used today. Ahead of us is Norwich's Roman Catholic Cathedral, the largest in England outside of London. The cathedral, which was originally built as a church, was completed in 1910 and is dedicated to St. John the Baptist. It was given cathedral status in 1976. Building work began in 1882 and was financed by the 15th Duke of Norfolk, Henry Howard, a fervent Catholic. The cathedral was commissioned to commemorate the Duke's marriage to his first wife, Lady Flora Hastings. As it turned out, by the time the cathedral was completed, she had been dead for 2 decades, and the Duke had remarried and had 2 more children. Beyond the cathedral is the Gothic Victorian plantation garden, which was created in a disused quarry and is open to the public every day. This is the stop for the Roman Catholic Cathedral and the plantation garden. As we leave the stop, look at the top of St. Giles Church to the left. In medieval times, this was the highest point of the city where beacons burned to show people the way back to the city. This is St. Giles Street, the Harley Street of the 18th century. One of the physicians living here was Dr. Edward Rigby, who once employed an errand-boy named John Crone, who he sacked for his practical jokes. These jokes included dropping skeletons on medical students and switching the labels on medicine bottles. John Crone then went into the sign-writing business and eventually went on to become one of England's most distinguished landscape artists and the founder of the Norwich School of Painting. The clock face on the tower of the City Hall ahead has a diameter of 14 feet and named after King George VI, who opened City Hall in 1938. As funding dried up as a result of the wars, 2 of the building's 4 sides were never completed. Ahead of us is the Guildhall, the largest provincial guildhall in England. Norwich was governed from the Guildhall between 1412 and 1938. When the City Hall, to our right, opened. Norwich's historic marketplace to the left was begun by the Normans in around the year 1067 and is the largest open marketplace in England. The church just us is St. Peter Mancroft, Norwich's largest parish church, built in the mid-1400s on the site of an earlier church. The large brick building on the left is called the Forum. The building houses libraries, cafes, the BBC, and the Tourist Information Centre. The old fire station to the right is now the Sir Isaac Newton's Sixth Form, UK's first specialist science and maths sixth form. Just after and behind the Sixth Form College to the right, you'll see the old Victorian skating rink. The old skating rink is now occupied by the Country and Eastern Gallery, housing a permanent collection of South Asian decorative arts, crafts and paintings, and is open to the public free of charge. The Sainsbury Centre for Visual Arts is also free entry and is located in the parkland of the University of East Anglia, a short ride on the number 25 bus. To the left, just after the cycle shop, you will see Churchman House, one of the best examples of Georgian townhouse in the country. As we turn left, you will see to our right St Giles Church, which you will notice is built mainly of flintstone. Most of the churches in Norwich are made of flintstone. This is the natural occurring stone of the area and was readily available, especially on the beaches of the nearby coastline in the 14th and 15th centuries when these churches were built. This stone has been formed from fossilized sea urchins and years of movement in the sea. Knapping of flint was an important craft in medieval times. This knapping was where a craftsman made round stone into flat-faced and even squared bricks. If knapstone was used on the building, it was a way of showing your status and wealth. Over 1,000 churches were built in medieval times in Norfolk, the largest concentration of churches in the world. Many now stand alone without a village. This is due to villages being lost during the Black Plague, when many were burnt to the ground to destroy the rats whose fleas were harbouring the plague. You may notice that many of the churches in Norfolk are standing on a hill, as they were to be revered and looked up to as the icon of the village. These churches at their time were not only for worship, but the meeting place, education centre and hub of the village. The round-towered churches seen in the eastern counties predate the square Norman churches, as they were built by the Saxons, mainly as lookout towers against the marauding Vikings, and became churches after the Norman invasion. Norfolk has more Saxon towers than any other county in England. To our right, as we travel down the street, is Chapel Field Gardens, once used as a training ground